We're learning the Sikha this week for Shabbos Parshas Bo. The Sikha in Tafshin Nun Beis is actually a combination of a Sikha that the Rebbe said on that Wednesday, Gimel Shvat, going into Parshas Bo, together with the Shabbos of Parshas Bo. The Sikha can be found in Sefer HaSichas Tafshin Nun Beis, Chelik Aleph, page 280. The Rebbe starts off by saying that the command from the Eibishter to Moshe Rabbeinu, Boyel Paroi, to come to Paroi, is the beginning of the Parsha and the name of the Parsha. This is the Parsha in which is discussed the Geula of Bnei Yisrael practically coming out of Mitzrayim. As the Pasuk says, Vayhi be'etzem hayom hazeh, on this very day, all the Tzivois Hashem, all the armies of Hashem came out of the land of Mitzrayim. Hoitzi Hashem is Bnei Yisrael mi'eretz Mitzrayim al Tzivoisam. The Eibishter took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. This is the Parsha that discusses Yitzias Mitzrayim. Since the Parsha of Yitzias Mitzrayim is being called by the name of Boy El Paroi, and it's known that the name of the Parsha also indicates and teaches us about the whole content of what the Parsha is all about, it's understood that Boy El Paroi is very much connected to the whole idea of the Geula out of Mitzrayim, which is what the Parsha discusses. In other words, in addition to the fact that all the details of Moshe Rabbeinu's shlichus to Paroi are all a preparation for the Geula of Mitzrayim, in addition to all of that, regarding the words Boyel Paroi, since this is the beginning of the Parsha and the name of the Parsha of the Geula, and in addition to this, it's the beginning of the Parsha that is said, these words Boyel Paroi are not even said as an introduction to another statement. Rather, the words Boyel Paroi, come to Paroi, this is a separate and individual command from the Eibishter to Moshe Rabbeinu. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe Boyel Paroi. Doesn't even say in the pasuk exactly what he's supposed to do there. It just says Vayomer Hashem al Moshe Boyel Paroi. Just come to Paroi. That's it. In other words, this Boyel Paroi is a general introduction to the whole Geula itself, and in a certain sense, the beginning of the Geula. The Boyel Paroi is a major statement in its own right. In addition to this, based on what it's known, that Yitzias Mitzrayim is also the beginning and the opening for all of the Geulas, including the Geula Hasidah, the Geula that's going to come through Mashiach, regarding which it says that it's going to be similar to Yitzias Mitzrayim. I'm going to show you wonders similar to the time of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Says the Rebbe, if that's the case, Yesh Loimar, makes sense to say that the words Boyel Paroi, which is the beginning for Geulas Mitzrayim, is also the introduction to the Geula Hasidah. So we need to understand all of this. What is the connection between Boyel Paroi with the idea of Geula? In fact, they would seem to be exactly opposites. Boyel Paroi, coming to Paroi, seems to indicate that Paroi is standing there with all of his might and all of his strength. Moshe Rabbeinu needs to come on to him. Moshe Rabbeinu needs to come to him. And in fact, Paroi says to him in the continuation of the Parsha, Lech me'olai, go away from me. Make sure you don't see my face anymore. The day you'll come see me, you'll die. Seems to be Paroi is standing here with all of his might, with all of his force. This seems to be exactly the opposite of the Geula of Mitzrayim, which was all about nullifying and getting rid of the strength of Paroi, overcoming Paroi, and in that way becoming completely freed, leaving Mitzrayim and leaving Paroi. So the question is, how does Boyel Paroi, coming to Paroi, which again seems to be saying that Paroi is in the might and power over here, how is that really the idea of Geula? In order to understand this, the Rebbe says in Seif Beis, we're going to understand this by first explaining a general question regarding these words, Boyel Paroi. We know that every single inyan in Torah is eternal. And every single inyan in Torah, therefore, is also an eternal hayra'ah for all generations. If that's the case, what could possibly be the hayra'ah, the eternal hayra'ah, from the words Boyel Paroi, from the idea of coming to Paroi? After Paroi was overcome already, after they were victorious over Paroi Melech Mitzrayim, by the Geulas Mitzrayim, and especially once the Geula HaMitis V'Hashlema is going to come, or Mashiach is going to come, and there will be no remnants from any of the Tumah at all, V'Esruach HaTumah Avrim and Oretz. There's no mark and no remnants left from Paroi. In a similar way, at the end of the time of Golos, when all of the birurim of Klipas Paroi are also over with already, as we discussed many times, that we're holding at a stage when all the birurim are finished. So the question is, what kind of hayra, what kind of lesson could all of this be now to us? The concept of boyal Paroi, come to Paroi. So the Rebbe says we could explain this based on what's known, that really every single thing in the world, even things that are the opposite of good and holiness, actually have a shoirish, have a root in Kedusha up above. And the shoirish in Kedusha, the root in Kedusha of these things, is their real, true identity. It's only that after many ishtalshalos, after this thing comes down many, many different levels, through many different screens and curtains and concealments and so on, eventually down here in this world, it may come out as something negative. But in its root, every single thing starts off in a higher spiritual holy world. In a similar way is regarding Paroi. The Zoyar on the pasuk Va'koil Nishma Beis Paroi, a pasuk that speaks about it was heard in Paroi's household, about Yosef being revealed to his brothers and so on. So the Zoyar says the following statement: Beis Paroi. What does it mean? The sound, the voice, the message was heard in the house of Paroi. Beis Paroi is a simon, is an indication, it's referring to something above. What does Beis Paroi mean? It's the house, the ispiriu, from where it's revealed and where it's uncovered all sorts of lights, all sorts of luminaries. So the word Paroi, the Zohar is translating from the word ispiriu, being uncovered or revealed. So Beis Paroi is the house from where, the source, from where all lights are uncovered. Everything, says the Zohar further, that was hidden, comes out revealed from there. And therefore the Eibishter took out all the lights and all of the luminaries in order to shine and to bring about that level of koil. We said before, the pasuk says V'hakoil Nishma Beis Paroi. The word koil over there is spelled without a vav. So the Zohar is saying that the Eibishter is bringing about all sorts of oiris to shine into this concept, into this level called koil. So again, what does Paroi represent? Paroi really represents, in the source in Kedusha, a very, very high source from where Paroi, from where it's being uncovered or revealed, all levels of holiness. Now from Paroi within its source in holiness, which is the idea of uncovering godliness, revealing godliness, and so on and so forth, eventually there's a Paroi that comes down here in this world, which ends up being a negative force, the Paroi of Klippa. Based on this, says the Rebbe in Siv Gimel, we can now understand the concept of boyal Paroi, what it means in its root, in its highest form and state in Kedusha. And the Rebbe quotes the Zohar. The Zohar explaining the pasuk boyal Paroi, explaining what it means by Paroi down here in this world. So the Zohar explains what it means, and the Rebbe is then going to show us what this all means in a more ruchniistic way, and in a holier way. So the Zohar says as follows. The pasuk tells us boyal Paroi. The Eibishter says come to Paroi. Now why does it say come to Paroi instead of leichel Paroi? Why doesn't it say go to Paroi? What does it mean come? So what it means is that the Eibishter took Moshe Rabbeinu. Come means come along. The Eibishter is taking Moshe Rabbeinu rooms inside of rooms into deeper and deeper chambers to this very, very great serpent or sea serpent, Tanin, from which many, many different levels and things come out of him. This is what's called the Tanin HaGodol, great Tanin, in a reference to Paroi. And Moshe was terrified. Moshe was afraid to go in. Moshe was only ready to go only to the levels of the Oirin, of the rivers. In other words, the various different levels that come out of this Tanin, out of this great Paroi. But to go inside to this Tanin, to this great sea serpent, and to get close over there, he was afraid because he saw all the different sources and so on. What comes out of this? In other words, what kind of great klippa this is. When the Eibishter saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was so afraid, and any other shluchim, any other malochim up above, and so on and so forth, would also not be able to go to this very, very great level of klipot. So the Eibishter said, Hineni alecha Paroi melech Mitzrayim, behold, I am going to come over you. Paroi, the king of Mitzrayim, this great tanim, this great serpent, haroivetz b'soich yoirav, that rests in the rivers. The Eibishter himself is going to wage war against him, the Eibishter and nobody else, as the pasuk concludes by saying with the words, Ani Hashem. In other words, because of the strength of Klipas Paroi, what's being called over here the Tanin HaGodol, and he is in his place, in the palace, that's in the highest source, so to speak, the deepest source. So Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid to go into him. And therefore the Eibishter says, don't go. It doesn't say Lech el Pari, go, which would imply that he's going by himself. Rather, Boi el Pari, come to Pari, means I'm coming along with you. The Eibishter is going to take Moshe Rabbeinu in to the deepest level of the Klipa of Pari. As the Zohar puts it, Idrin Basar Idrin, chambers inside of chambers, rooms inside of rooms, in order to completely conquer Paroi, to wage war against Pari. Now, this is all the way the Zohar is explaining it regarding the Paroi of Klippa. But according to this, we need to understand, what does Boil Pari mean in the Kedusha sense? We said before that Pari also has a root. In Kedusha, the level, the Isperiu, V'izgalyim, Minei Kol Nohoirin, we said that Pari also means the level, the source from where all sorts of oiris and lights are being uncovered and revealed. If that's what it's referring to, such a high, beautiful level of Kedusha, then what does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu is afraid? What does it mean Moshe Rabbeinu is afraid to go in there by himself, and he needs that the Eibishter should command him, Boil Pari, come to Paroi, and I will take you into Hashem. And what's the problem? Why can't Moshe Rabbeinu go? What is he terrified of? So the Rebbe says the explanation is like this. When we speak about the idea of Paroi de Kedusha, which obviously means a very, very great and intense level of godly revelation, so what we're speaking about over here is, in a sense, two aspects to this great Gilui. Two aspects to the Paroi idea of this Gilui. Number one is that there's a very, very great revelation of all of the Oires, all of the greatest and highest levels of Elikus. As the Zohar puts it, Kol Nohoirin V'chol Mutzinin, all the lights, all the candles, all the luminaries, everything that was hidden before is going to be revealed now. Also, the way it's going to be revealed is also in a way of Paroi, in a way of Isperiu. The Rebbe says from the word of Parua, meaning without an order, without a Seder. I guess Parua over here, more like the idea of something disturbed, something completely out of order. In other words, the way it's being revealed is completely beyond any Seder, beyond any order, limitation, and so on and so forth. Furthermore, this idea of Isperiu v'izgalyim minei kol nohoirin, this idea what we say that Pari means the source of all revelations, this itself is coming from the very, very essence of Hashem himself. As the Zohar says, what does base Pari mean? Base, the house, the source, from where all of the oiris are being revealed. The Eibishter is the one that's bringing out, that's revealing all of these oiris. What does it mean, the house of Pari? What is the idea of a house? A house is the place where the person, the king that's in the house, could reveal himself with his whole essence. So in other words, we're speaking about a level over here that's beyond any sort of limitations. Usually, a oir, any sort of light, has some sort of definition, has some sort of limitation, has some sort of form and shape. Usually, a oir comes down in some sort of orderly fashion. So if that's the case, when we're speaking about that there's going to be a revelation over here of absolutely every single oir and everything that was hidden, which, in other words, things that were not revealed, and it's going to be in a way of Isperiu, in a way that's completely out of order, completely beyond any order. Obviously, this is coming from the essence of Hashem, which is the source of everything, the source of all the lights. Or as the Zohar says in this week's parsha, the essence from which all the other dargos come out of it, and at the same time, this is such a level of a source that's really higher even than having any sorts of connection to the oir, to the light, higher than being a source to light, and therefore every single thing could come out and could be revealed, and in a totally unlimited way. If we're speaking about such a powerful, great, high place, source of light, now we can understand why Moshe is afraid and he's not getting close. Because he sees the power of Kedusha, in other words, the way he is in the highest of highest sources, the way this is referring to such a high source which is Bechlal, completely higher than any level of oil. And therefore he's afraid to go into this thing called base Pari, the place where there is the essence of Pari of Kedusha, the essence of the highest levels of godliness. Moshe Rabbeinu is afraid to enter, because a created, limited being, a neshama beguf, could not go and receive these amazing revelations from the very essence of Hashem. This level that we call Ispiriu v'Yizgalyin Minei Kol Nahoidim, from where all lights are being revealed. How is it possible for a limited nivra, for a limited creation, to be able to receive such tremendous high oiros? And in a way, as we said before, how are the oiros coming down? Not only is there a lot of oir, but it's in a completely unlimited way, completely not in an orderly way. It's in a way that's coming directly from the etzem of Hashem. It would seem impossible. If we speak about lower levels of Ishtalshlus, or as the Zohar says, the levels of the rivers that come out of him and the different dargis that come out of him, that's more connected and more shaykh, more able for a nivra, for creation to be able to receive. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was not afraid to approach Paroi, as Paroi is on that level, even if Paroi is in his house, especially if he's out of his house, not in his domain, so to speak. But if Paroi is in that state of Ispiriu Kol Nahoirin, if he's in his house with the full strength, with the greatest Giluyim, as we're speaking over here in the spiritual, in the positive sense, the Giluyim from the very essence of Hashem being expressed by this word Paroi over here, this is what Moshe Rabbeinu is afraid. How is it possible for a neshama inside of a guf to be able to receive all of this? It doesn't seem possible. Says the Rebbe, this is also hinted in the continuation of the parsha, when Paroi says, "Go away from me, and you better be careful not come see me again, because the day you're going to see me, you're going to die," which of course, in the simple way of understanding the pasuk, it obviously meant in a very, very negative way. But Moshe Rabbeinu actually agrees to Paroi, and he says, "You spoke correctly. I will not see your face again." In other words, the argument of Paroi, or the words of Paroi, actually have validity according to Torah and Kedusha. But in Kedusha, it's actually saying something very positive, and it's only saying something very good in the most perfect way. In other words, since Paroi of Kedusha represents a level of oir, a level of godliness that's beyond any sort of limitation, so therefore, it's really impossible for a person alive in a Shama Beguf to be able to contain this. If only for the level of Moshe on his own, in other words, without the special assistance from above, it's not possible for a nivra, for a creation, as a neshama inside of a guf, to receive this level, to see re'ois panecha, this level of pari, to see the pnimius, the deepest levels of elikus, which is higher than limitations. This is only as the neshama is outside the guf, not limited by the guf, that is physical and limited, has its constraints, and therefore that's the pshat that he wouldn't be able to remain alive to see this gilui. This is why he needed a special koyach from the Eibishter. And this is what the Rebbe explains in Seir Dalet. The Eibishter comes along and gives a special command to Moshe Rabbeinu, and with this giving him special koyach, the Eibishter says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Boyel Pari, come to Pari. That means the Eibishter is taking him into these most deepest chambers, to the very, very essence of Hashem himself. The essence of Hashem is coming along and bringing Moshe to this level called Pari, so to speak, meaning to say that even as Moshe Rabbeinu is a neshama inside of a physical limited body, he should be able to receive directly from Atzmos this level of Ispiriu Kol Nahoirin, this idea of the revelation of all of these most amazing lights which are standing beyond limitation and beyond order. And the Rebbe explains this further by saying the following. When we say paroi, it's from the word isperiu v'is galium in a kol nehoirin, that all the lights are being revealed from this level. This itself can really be explained in two ways. Number one is that we're speaking about a gilui of all of these greatest oiros, and in a way that's completely higher than Seder v'adroga, higher than any sort of order, which is showing that the gilui is coming from the essence of Hashem, which is higher than the concept of oir. And therefore, this gilui is not really relating to, affecting, and impacting the levels of oir as oir is in its normal shape and form. Because oir itself, even though it's me'enam oir, it's similar to the luminary, but oir itself is not in a way of isperiu. The oir itself usually is in an orderly fashion. It has to be in an orderly fashion. So again, number one way of understanding isperiu v'is galium in a kol nehoirin is that there's something happening over here beyond the normal idea of oir. It's not really relating to the idea of oir, it's just something beyond. A second way of understanding, says the Rebbe, is when we say the words kol nehoirin, that means even the oir itself, as it stands in its form of oir, and yet it becomes in a way of isperiu. Yet it's revealed in a way going beyond of its own limitations and forms. In other words, that within the form of the oir, within the shape of the oir, within the limitations of the oir, yet it is standing in a way of beyond limitations, which seems to be obviously two opposites. Having the oir remain the oir the way it is, and yet at the same time being unlimited. And the Rebbe says this happens dafka with the koyach of the essence of Hashem. As it's known that the oir, before it's revealed, is completely included within the essence of Hashem himself, within the moir, within the luminary, but there it's not yet on the level of oir. There it's what's called within the yecholes ha'atzmos. In other words, it's within the ability kavayachol of Hashem to produce the oir. And it's one with Hashem, the way Hashem proceeds everything and so on. The Eibishter includes everything, the Eibishter is able to do everything and so on and so forth. Or as the expression we've been using, isperiu minei kol nehoirin. So where is the oir itself originating from? It's within the essence of Hashem. And therefore, even as the oir eventually does come out in its specific shape and form of oir, nevertheless, inside of this oir, it's getting from the koyach of atzmus, and therefore can have this gilui of kol nehoirin, in other words, being revealed as a way as it's beyond limitations. And furthermore, that as we said before, within the limitation itself, it should stand in a way that's beyond it all. From this way, the way it happens within the oir, eventually it comes down into a lower form, that there's this ability to be able to connect opposites of bli gvul and gvul within the oir itself. Or on another level, the idea of the combination of putting together what's called the oir and the keli, the light and the vessel. Or eventually, the connection between the neshama and guf, that even as a neshama is inside of a physical limited guf, nevertheless it should be able to receive the unlimited oir, that great gilu which we call paroi, isperiu kol nehoirin, getting directly from atzmus or yizbarech, from the very essence of Hashem. And furthermore, that the neshama inside the guf should be able to go inside over there, boil pari, to be able to come into this very high level, idrin basar idrin, rooms, inside of rooms, into the very, very essence and deepest levels of what we just called pari. Why is it that the Eibishter did this amazing chiddush of boil pari? That Moshe Rabbeinu as a neshama in a guf should be able to receive this gilui of isperiu kol nehoirin, this awesome, amazing, great gilui. So the Rebbe explains in Seif Hey that this will be understood based on understanding the whole idea of Geulas Mitzrayim generally, which of course, Boil Pari is an introduction and a beginning to the Geula of Mitzrayim. And the Rebbe explains. The whole point of Geulas Mitzrayim, of course, is Matan Torah. As the Eibishter says to Moshe Rabbeinu right in the beginning of his mission, when you take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, you're going to be serving Hashem at this mountain at Har Sinai. What's the Chiddush of Matan Torah? Of course, we know is the idea that the Torah and mitzvahs are given down in this world to Bnei Yisrael as neshamas inside of physical bodies. so that they should be able to fulfill the whole purpose of why the world was created. The Eibishter has desire to have a dwelling place in this world. In other words, that within the limitations of the world, within the concealments of the world, as an neshama is inside a guf in this lowly world, and yet right over here should be the gilui of the essence of Hashem Kvayochel. Just like a person that inside of his own private house could be revealed with his whole essence. And surely the Eibishter, who is the creator of the world and the one who runs the world, should be able to be revealed completely inside this world, as will be practically fully revealed by the Geula Amitis V'Ashleiman in a similar way started already by Matan Torah. The Pasuk says regarding the Geula of Lo Yikanif V'Yid Moirecha, that the Eibishter will no longer be hidden from us. The Eibishter will be, so to speak, in his dwelling place without any coverings. Not even the highest, deepest, greatest sort of coverings. And as it's known, that before Matan Torah there was the Gzeira, there was that decree, that separation between the higher worlds and the lower worlds. Elyonim lo yedu l'mata, the higher worlds weren't able to come down. Tachtoinim lo yalu l'mayla, and the lower world realms weren't able to go up. By Matan Torah there was the Bittul HaGzeira, the decree was nullified. And now there's the koyach given to the Tachtoinim, to the people in this world, to be able to draw down the gilui of the Elyonim, the highest spiritual things, the highest, greatest levels of Elikus, and even the very, very essence of Hashem, in such a way that the physical body in this Gashmiistic world should be able to be holy, and should be able to be a dira for the Eibishter, and finally that in this whole world should be able to be revealed how the Eibishter and the Yidden are all one. If that's the point of Matan Torah, and we just said that the whole idea of Yitzias Mitzrayim is a preparation for this. So from this we understand that in the Golus Mitzrayim and in Yitzias Mitzrayim, which are the preparation for the Gilui of Atzmos B'Matan Torah, obviously already in these preparation stages, there has to be emphasized how we're preparing already for the Bitul HaGzeira, for the transition from the time when there's a separation from Elyonim and Tachtoinim to a state when there will be Achdus between them as a preparation for the Achdus that's going to happen by Matan Torah. Says the Rebbe that this very, very major stage, preparation for this transition, happened when the Eibishter says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Boil Parah, as will soon be explained. In order to understand this, as the Rebbe in Sivav, we'll first have a look that we see something similar in the beginning of Moshe Rabbeinu's mission to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu argues to Hashem, and he says, Lo yish dvorim anoichi, I am not a man of words. Ki chvad peh, chvad lashon anoichi, I have difficulty speaking. And therefore, shalachna bi'atishlach, please send somebody else. So it's explained in a number of places. Chassidus explains that in Golus Mitzrayim, the level of dibur, the speech of Moshe, was in Golus. As we'll soon explain a little more what this all means. Moshe Rabbeinu was arguing that therefore he cannot bring about the Geula down here in this world. Simply, Moshe Rabbeinu is seemingly having difficulty speaking. B'shoyrish Yanim, again, once again, up above, looking at this all in a more spiritual way, it's really because of Moshe Rabbeinu's high level. On Moshe Rabbeinu's level, as he is on his own, he is in a level that's completely higher than Dibur, higher than to being able to reveal himself and coming down to the world of speech. Even higher than the Dibur of Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh, bringing Torah down into this world. The Rebbe quotes, Kvad Peh, difficulty of speech, is referring to Torah. Kvad Peh of Torah Shebal Peh. Kvad Loshoin means difficulty regarding Torah Shebiksav. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu had a difficulty coming down into the world of speech, even regarding matters of Torah. Why is that? Because Moshe Rabbeinu's shorish is in the world of Toyu, a place which has tremendous and intense great oiros, which cannot come down into kalim, into vessels. And that's the pshat, kvad peh, that's what it means, kvad peh, that he wasn't able to bring down his great lofty levels into his intellectual oir down into the keli, into the mouth. And therefore he says, Shlachna bi'atishlach, please send who you will send in the future, referring to Mashiach Tzidkenu. In other words, someone that has more of a connection to the world of Tikkun rather than the world of Toyu, a place, a person, and a place, a world that has much more kalim, vessels, to be able to contain these oiros. So what does the Eibishter answer? The Eibishter says, Misam Pela Adam, who is the one who gives man a mouth? Halo Yanoichi Hashem, isn't it I Hashem? And Hashem goes on to tell Moshe Rabbeinu, I will be with your mouth, I'm going to instruct you what to speak and so on. What is Hashem saying to Moshe Rabbeinu? The essence of Hashem, that's Koil Yochel, that's able to do anything. He is the source for these Kalim, for the idea of a mouth, of the world of Tikkun, as well as the source of the Oiros in the world of Toyu. He could bring about that even as there's a state of Golus, and even a Moshe Rabbeinu that on his own is completely higher than coming down to Kalim, and yet he should be able to reveal himself and bring down into Dibur, into speech. Hashem says, I will be with your mouth. In other words, even Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, even though yes, you're from the world of Toyu, you don't have these Kalim, but I, Hashem, the one that created the Kalim of Tikkun, and I'm the one that created the world of Toyu, I could change things around, that Toyu and Tikkun should be able to combine together. In other words, to be able to have the qualities of both of them, having all the amazing great oides from the world of Toyu, along with the great qualities of the world of Tikkun, that there should be plenty vessels, enough vessels, to be able to contain the great oil. It is only that in that time in Mitzrayim, the V'anoichi Eyem Picha was still in a miraculous way. In other words, that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he spoke to Paroi, his words will come out correctly. And in addition to that, Aaron, of his brother, is going to be his spokesman. As the Pasuk says, you will speak to him and put the words in his mouth. He will be as your mouthpiece, etc. So that the Dibur should be able to reveal itself completely, also in a natural way. But he was not cured yet completely. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu still says after that, Ani aral sfosayim, I have blocked lips. And the fact that he was able to speak then was caused by Anoichi Eyem Picha, that I will be with your mouth. Same Anoichi like by Matan Torah, the Anoichi, which is the beginning of the Aseres HaDibros. And that's why he was able to bring about Yetzias Mitzrayim, even though Moshe on his own, as we said, his speech was in a state of Golus. However, in order to bring about the Gilui of the Dibur completely, there had to be this idea of breaking Mitzrayim, breaking the Klipa of Mitzrayim, that the Eibishter is with Moshe Rabbeinu assisting him to break down Mitzrayim completely. Eventually, this will bring the Gilui of Matan Torah, the Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, Moshe Rabbeinu will be cured completely. Says the Rebbe in Siv Zayin, based on all of this, we can also understand now the idea of Boil Pari in the sense of Kedusha, that Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid to go in there. The Rebbe explains, Moshe Rabbeinu, based on his own level, Kvad Pel, Kvad Loshen, as we just explained, difficulty of speech because of the great Oiros that he has that are higher than Kalim. What he is afraid of is how are the Kalim, how are the vessels going to be able to accept these great Oiros from this level called this Periu Kol Oirim, from where everything is revealed. So this is the Chiddush of the Eibishter to Moshe Rabbeinu, Boil Paroi. The Eibishter takes Moshe Rabbeinu in room after room, in the inmost inner chambers. The Eibishter is giving Moshe Rabbeinu the koyach of Atzmos, that the Kalim, those vessels of a neshama, being inside of a guf, and yet they should be able to receive in a pneumius all of the Giluyim, coming directly from the essence of Hashem, that level which we call Isperiu v'izgalim and Ekol Nahoirin, from where all levels are uncovered and revealed. And why is that? How is that possible? Because really this is the whole point of why the whole Seder Ishtashlus came into being, of all of the Oiris, even these greatest levels called Paroi. Isperiu Kol Nahoirin, from where all levels are revealed, is really all about the Dira B'Tachtoinim, because the Eibishter wanted to have a dwelling place down here in this world. Meaning to say, that within the limitations of a neshama inside the guf in this lowest world, there should be the Gilui of Atzmos. And this is why Vayomer Hashem al Moshe Boil Pari, the Eibishter says to Moshe Rabbeinu, come to Paroi, that as you're a neshama in a guf, you're going to be going into Paroi of Kedusha, receiving these greatest Giluyim from the essence of Hashem, this level of Ispiriyu v'Yizgalim and Ekol Noir. Says the Rebbe in Sifches, now we can understand why Boil Paroi is the introduction and the beginning of the Geula, which is what we asked in the beginning of the Sikha. Why is Boil Pari the name of the Parsha? Why is this the beginning of Geula? So of course, in addition to the simple pshat, that through boil paroi of klipa, by coming in simply into pari, this is the way pari is going to be broken. As pari is with his full strength in his palace, he's going to be broken and crushed, and this is the beginning of the Gula. But in addition to all of that, there's something much more important over here. And that is, the whole point of Geulas Mitzrayim, as we said before, is to bring Matan Torah, to bring about Dira B'Tachtoinim, to bring about the Gilui of the essence of Hashem, of the Anoichi to Yidden, as they are Neshamois inside of Gufim, as a Neshama is healthy in a physical, healthy body. As it's known that by Matan Torah, the Yidden were healed, including Moshe Rabbeinu, as we said before. Says the Rebbe, this is also hinted in the fact that the Eibishter says to the Yidden before Matan Torah, Va'atam tili mamlechas koyanim v'goy kodesh, you're going to be for me a nation of koyanim, and a holy nation, meaning even as you're a nation down here in this world, you are holy, and you're on the level of mamlechas koyanim, and not only any koyanim, but koyanim g'doilim. And a koyan gadol, we know needs to be someone that's complete, healthy, complete in his body, with money, and complete in his money. He's supposed to be rich, and even in his clothes are supposed to be l'chavid or l'sefaris, for honor and for glory. In other words, we're speaking about Yidden being down here in this world in the most perfect way, and as they are neshamis inside of Gufim, being one with the Eibishter. And this also causes that it should be the same thing in the world, that the world as a tachtoin should be connected with the Elyonim, which was achieved by Matan Torah, and of course ultimately the Gili of the very essence of Hashem b'tachtoinim. And since this is such a major chiddush, that a physical person down here in this world, in a neshama, in a limited body, should be able to unite with a bli gvul and unite with atzmos, as Moshe Rabbeinu himself was surprised and afraid, and he was terrified, dochil mineh, he was terrified, as we said before. Therefore, as an introduction to this, Vayomer Hashem Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, boil pari, come into paroi, meaning to say that as you're a neshama inside of a guf, with all the limitations, and a situation where there could be danger even, at least from the pari of Klippa, and yet at the very same time, you're going to go in, the pnimius, into the pari of Kedusha and get these greatest revelations from the essence of Hashem, from this level that we said, from Isperiu v'Yis Galya, the pari, the idea of pari, meaning the revelation of all the greatest lights. And because it was like this by Moshe Rabbeinu, this gives the koyach also to all the Yidden, that they too should be able to receive the Gili of Matan Torah. When there is the connection between the Gvul and the Bli Gvul, the idea of Isperiu, Kol Oir, and the greatest lights being revealed, the light of Torah and mitzvahs, Neir mitzvah of Torah Oir, that all of the lights which are originally in a state of Gvul, and yet it should be Isperiu, it should be in a way of Bli Gvul, which means, as we know, that Torah and mitzvahs on its own are initially and originally completely higher than any sort of limitation. There's the wisdom and the will of the Eibishter. The Chiddush is that not only as they are on their own, but even as they come down here into this world by Matan Torah, into all the limitations. And furthermore, the way we do them is dafka with the limitations of this world. And yet at the same time, it stands higher than limitations. And the Rebbe explains, in Torah, we first of all have Torah Shebeksav, which Torah Shebeksav has a specific limitations. There's a certain amount of letters, etc. In Torah Shebal Peh, again there are certain limitations. We need to take it into our understanding, into our limited understanding. Only then can we say Berkos HaTorah, if we actually understood it. So this is all connected with limitation of the human being. Especially mitzvahs, every single mitzvah has its own limitations. There's many, many different dinim and hidurim, every single mitzvah according to its own inyan. At the same time, we say these limitations of Torah and mitzvahs, of these lights, of Kol Nahoirin, of the Ner mitzvah of Torah Oir, yet they stand in a way of Isperiu, in a way that's higher than limitation. The Rebbe gives some examples over here. First of all, an example from a pasuk, V'hoya mispar goymer asher lo yimad v'lo yisafar meroiv. So we're speaking on the one hand about the number of Yidden, and yet we're saying it's not going to be able to be counted because it's so many. So it seems to be connecting limitation number and beyond number at the same time, or similar to the concept of what we say, on the one hand there's a specific space that the Orin has to take up, and at the same time we know the Orin did not take up any space. From all of this we also learn a lesson in the avodah of a Yid, the Yid that receives the Torah and mitzvahs, that even as a Yid is in a Shama, in a Guf down here in this world, together with all of the limitations, that are tied with this. At the same time, the Yid has to stand higher than limitations. Not only because and based on his neshama, which neshama shenasata b'tohira, he has a pure and holy neshama from the Eibishter, that's higher than the limitations of the body, but even as the neshama is inside of the limitations, and real limitations, of a physical body, in a situation where v'atom mishamer b'kirbi, he needs that special protection from the Eibishter. At the same time, this Yid can be boil power, he can come to the highest levels, to the greatest levels of revelations. And furthermore, even the limitations themselves can be standing in a way that's beyond Medidav Agbala, beyond limitations. And the reason is because Yisrael, V'kuchemrichu, Kulachad, Yidden and the Eibishter are all one. Not only because of his neshama, the way it's up above, or a part of his neshama, but his whole mitzi is the whole entity of the Yid, as a neshama and as guf together, is one with the Eibishter Kavayachol. Because we know a rule, etzem, the essence, when you take a part of it, you have all of it. As it's also known from the Psak Din. And according to the Ramban, this is the way it's going to be, and the Psak Din is, according to the Ramban, that the whole reward, the main reward, and the shleimus, the perfection of all things, is going to be dafka to neshamis inside of physical bodies, by Tchias HaMesim. Not like the Rambam says that the reward and the ultimate thing is neshamis without bodies. And Adrabah, on the contrary, we say that La'asad Lavi, when Mashiach is going to come, the neshama is going to be sustained by the guf. Says the Rebbe in Sifteh, based on all of this, we can understand the words of Moshe Rabbeinu to Paroi in the continuation of the Parsha. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Gam ato tite biyadenu, even you yourself, Pari, are going to give us the offerings and the karbonis that we are going to offer to Hashem. Then the Eibishter also commands Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Yidden that they should go ask from the Egyptians, and the woman should ask from the Egyptian woman for silver and golden vessels. The Eibishter gives the favor of the people of the Yidden in the eyes of Mitzrayim. And also Moshe Rabbeinu was very great in the land of Mitzrayim in the eyes of Avdei Pari, the servants of Pari, and the eyes of the people. And then the Torah repeats again the idea that the Yidden go ahead and fulfill this. That the Yidden did what Moshe Rabbeinu told them to do. They asked the Egyptians for all of these things. And the Eibishter gave the favor of the people in the eyes of Mitzrayim, and they gave them whatever they asked for, and they emptied out Mitzrayim. This is all in addition to the first time it says in Parsha Shmos. In other words, the Torah repeats this idea 3 times. So the question is, why is it so relevant to the Geula of Mitzrayim, this idea that Paro is going to give them all of this, and that they're going to empty out Mitzrayim, and that this is all going to be in a way dafka that the Yidden are going to ask them for it. And furthermore, it's dafka going to be in a way of finding favor in the eyes of Mitzrayim, and the Eibishter is assuring him of all of this. V'Hashem nosan l'scheinu am be'enim Mitzrayim. The Eibishter is making sure this is going to happen. When Yidden went out of Mitzrayim after hundreds of years of enslavement, you would have thought that they're looking for ways to get out of there as quickly as possible and not staying back another moment just to find favor in the eyes of the Egyptians. Even if there needs to be a concept of Ayinatzel, that they need to empty out Mitzrayim in order to fulfill Hashem's promise to Avraham Avinu of Achrei Chen Yetzer Baruch Gadol. But why does it have to be that they're now going to ask the Egyptians for this and all of that? Why couldn't they just take it by Makas Choshech, for example, and dafka in a way that they have to find favor in the eyes of the Egyptians? So the Rebbe explains this based on the idea that was speaking before about Dira B'Tachtoinim. Since the whole point of the Geula out of Mitzrayim is in order to bring about a Dira B'Tachtoinim, so the proper and complete way that this can be done is not in a way of breaking Mitzrayim, but dafka in the Gashmis of the world itself, the opposition itself, the Egyptians themselves, are agreeing to help along as much as possible to the Geula. Yes, it's true that in certain situations when there is no other choice, rather than breaking the opposition, like it was by the makris that we had to do to Mitzrayim, so sometimes this has to be the order, as if, so to speak, there's no other choice. But afterwards, whenever and wherever it's possible, we try doing things dafka in a way of bedarki noyim, in a pleasant way, because ultimately it's about the Dira B'Tachtoinim. And this becomes the proper hachana for the way the Dira is going to be the Dira B'Tachtoinim. By the Geula Mitzvah Shleima, when we say that even the Nachash, even the snake, which we said before, that's one of the ways Paro is referred to, even the snake will be a shamash god, will also be a big servant helping out the Kedusha. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yud, but by Geulas Mitzrayim, at that time the Tachton was not completely refined yet, not completely elevated yet, as it's understood from the fact that the Yidden had to run away from Mitzrayim. You left in haste. Because at that point the evil, the Ra, the Klippa was still standing full force. As it's understood from the fact that afterwards the Egyptians chased the Bnei Yisrael. And Yetzias Mitzrayim was not complete until the Yidden saw the Egyptians dead at the edge of the sea. The real Bitter Oilam, the real elevation of the world, is going to be Dafka the end of this Golus, this last Golus, by the Geula Amitis Vashleimo, which we say is we're going to have miracles similar to Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's why the Exodus and going out of this Golus to the Geula is going to be in a way, as the Pasuk says, Loi b'chi pozon tzitzeyu, not in haste and not with running, because the spirit of impurity will completely be removed from the world. And that's why, although, yes, we will go out of the Golus in a way of Zerizus, but at the same time, in a relaxed way, both for our Nefesh and our Guf, with a complete health as neshamis inside of Gufim, and going over completely without any interruption at all to eternal life as neshamis begufim begula mitzvah vashleima, when, as we said before, that's when we'll have the ultimate and the proper full reward. Says the Rebbe in Sefid Aleph. All of this also has a connection to Yud Shvat, the Yom Hilula of Kvoit Kedushas Meir V'chami Adamur of my father-in-law Nasi Dereinu. That this day, the day of Yud Shvat, is getting the bracha this year from Shabbos, Parshas Boil Paroi, as well as the Histalkus itself, the passing itself of the Frierdiker Rebbe in Tafshin Yud, was on Parshas Boil itself. It is known that in the day of a Hilula of a Tzaddik, so his neshama goes up above, together with all of his actions, his Torah and Avodah that he did during his whole lifetime, and there it gets revealed and shines down from up above, down below, and it brings about tremendous salvations down here in this world. In the yard site of every single year, there's an aliyah, there's an elevation completely incomparable to the previous years, in the neshama of whose Hilula we commemorate, celebrate, which is the reason of why Kaddish is said on the day of a yard site every single year, and an aliyah going higher and higher. And to use the words of the Parsha, and in the terminology that we said before, that on Yud Shvat, the Baal HaHilula, the Moshe Rabbeinu of our generation, as we know that there's a Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation, the Moshe Rabbeinu has the idea of Boil Paroi, that the Eibishter takes him in to these deepest chambers, higher and higher, to the level of Paroi, of Kedusha, to the level where all Oiris come from. And every single year, and so to this year, there's a greater Aliyah and an incomparable Aliyah. And this Gilui of Boil Pari by the Nasi Ador, which we know that Han Nasi Hu HaKol, the Nasi is everything, this itself is drawn down and reveals itself down here in this world and brings about salvation in this world, has an effect on all the people of the generation, especially that every Yid also has a Moshe inside of him, and Dafka as the Yidden are Neshamis inside of bodies, and especially that this generation, as the Baal HaHilula said, is the last generation of Golus and the first generation of Geula. That this Doer, which is called Ikvasa the Mashiach, the time of the heels of Mashiach, is a Gilgul, is the same Neshamis as the generation that left Mitzrayim. So therefore there's even a greater comparison between the Baal HaHilula, the Nasi of our generation, the Moshe of our generation, to Moshe in his generation, as the Chazal say, that Moshe Goyal Rishon is the first Redeemer, as well as the Goyal Achrein, as well as the last Redeemer. And as we discussed many times, that the Nasi of our generation has a special connection to the Geula of Klal Yisrael of this generation. And of all the generations, the Geula Hamitis Vashleima, as is hinted in this name, Yosef Yitzchak. Yosef is because the Eibishter is going to eventually once again take out Yisrael just like he took them out of Mitzrayim. As the Pasuk says, V'hoye b'yemahu Yosef Hashem Sheinis Yodi. The Eibishter will once again stretch out his hand and take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, so that's the name Yosef. Yitzchak, of course, is the idea of Simcha. Yitzchak was so called because Kol Hashemeh Yitzchak li, whoever hears about this is going to laugh and is going to be happy with me and for me. Of course, the ultimate laughter and happiness is going to be beGeula, by the Geula, as we say, Ozi Mali Schoich Pinul Sheneinu Rino. And as we saw Bepoil, as we saw practically the avodah and the conduct of the Baal HaHilula, was specifically unique in this, that it was always dafka in a way of simcha. And the amazing thing about this is even more, take into consideration that the Frierdiker Rebbe was a Bal Yisurim Gashmiyim lo yaleinu, that he had a lot of suffering lo yaleinu, and in a way that it also affected his ruchni, his dika life, as will soon be discussed. So from this we understand even more that this idea of Isperiu Kol Nahoirin, this idea of this level of where all the oiris come from, which happens by the Baal HaIlula, especially on the day of the Ilula, includes also the fact that his conduct was dafka mitoich simcha. So all of this comes down to each and every yid, and to all of the yid in our generation, that as neshamis inside of bodies, they should be able to receive all of these greatest oiros. And the Rebbe says in Sifid Beis, notwithstanding the fact that by the Baal HaIlula there is this gilui of boil paroi, however, right now b'poil, it's as he's a neshama higher than a guf. But based on what we discussed previously at length, it's understood that the ultimate shleimus is dafka when we have all of these greatest oidos coming as a neshama inside a guf, as it will be by the Baal HaIlula immediately when hakitzu v'rananu sheich neyofer, when there will be tchias hamesim. Furthermore, even as the Frierdiker Rebbe was alive in this physical world, he suffered tremendous yisurim, lots of suffering, which also had an impact on his ruchni, his dika life, including the fact that in his later years, it was similar to what was by Moshe Rabbeinu, kavad peo, kavad loshoin, that it was difficult for him to speak. And this had an effect on his being able to say chassidus, spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit, and spreading chassidus to the outsider, had an effect on how he was able to do that. To such an extent that even his personal doctor, which was actually a professor, which is greater than just a normal doctor, came and asked him, sort of with a claim and a taina, how does it make sense that his suffering should get in the way of his koyach hadibur, that he should be able to speak, and in such a way that he should not be able to do his shlichus in this world as he would like to. He, the Frierdiker Rebbe, is the one that's making such a big shturim, such a big koch, in spreading Torah Yiddishkeit and spreading chassidus to the outside. This is all what the doctor is arguing. So the Eibishter should give him the full opportunity to be able to do this in the greatest measure. So therefore he should surely be able to speak properly and fully, because it's actually through the speech that's the main thing, how he can be spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit by saying Mamorim of Chassidus and giving Hoyrois, etc. And Adarabah, since he is the one that's koching sich so much in this avodah, he should have this idea of being able to speak much more than everybody else. Not only not having problems in comparison to other people, but he should have it in a much greater measure than other people. If that's the case, ask the doctor, how does it make sense that notwithstanding all of this, we see exactly the opposite? That all of his suffering actually had an impact on his koyach hadibur begashmius, which had an effect b'pashtus, that it should also impact, kevayochel, the Rebbe says, also his speech and saying Mamorim of Chassidus, etc., which simply, this caused that there should be less in quantity of how much it was supposed to be, both in how much he was speaking and saying Mamorim of Chassidus, as well as spreading his Chassidus b'ksav, because obviously if he would have been saying more Mamorim, there would also be more chazorah, repetition of the Mamorim, and also writing down the Mamorim, etc. Now, of course, even though it's impossible to ask questions on the conduct of the Eibishter in his world, especially regarding how he conducts himself with a Nosi Ador, and therefore you can't say how it should have been and how it shouldn't have been, etc. But nevertheless, the Eibishter set up the world in a way that he only asks according to our koyach. In other words, that the Eibishter wants that to the best of our ability we should try to understand with our seichel whatever we're able to. Especially in this case, that this question, al pi seichel of this doctor, that how does it make sense that the Nosi Ador cannot fulfill his shlichus as he would like to, is not only a question al pi seichel, it's a question that fits with Torah as well. As we see Moshe Rabbeinu argue to the Eibishter, kvad pel, kvad loshen anoichi, it's difficult for me to speak. V'ani aras fosayim, I have blocked lips, and therefore please send somebody else. And what does the Eibishter say? Anoichi ehyeh and picha, I will be with your mouth. And not only that, he sends along Aaron for him to be his spokesman. that through Ari, Moshe Rabbeinu's words were able to come out Begashmias Mamash. Says the Rebbe, via Shloimar, that the fact that this is the way it was by the Frierdiker Rebbe is actually similar to the way it was by Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because since the Birur, all of the elevation of the Inyanim of this Golus was not complete yet, so the idea of Dibur was still in Golus, similar to the way it was by Moshe Rabbeinu. We said before, Moshe Rabbeinu on his own is higher than the idea of Dibur. And what happened at that time? The Eibishter didn't cure him completely yet, rather made a miracle that he will be with him, he will assist him, his words will come out right, and so on and so forth. So the way to fix all of this up, that it should be properly betachlis hashleimus, to fix up this lack of dibur, so to speak, with the koyach of the Baalei Lula, is through the neshamis begufim, through those neshamis that are in physical bodies, healthy neshamis and healthy bodies, the neshamis and gufim of our generation, the 9th generation, that we have the koyach to, so to speak, fill that task of Arin Achicha Yiyeh Neviecha, that is our task to bring about in speech, practically, in a way like Koil Nishma Beis Pari, like the pasuk we quoted before, that we should be speaking lots of words of Torah and giving over the Hayrois of the Baalei Lula, until it finally, our generation is the generation in which it's fulfilled, and immediately the Shlachna Bi'atishlach, through Mashiach Tzidkenu, which through him is brought about, B'Shleimus, in a complete way, those Gili of the Oiris, in the idea of Dibur, as we mentioned before. Says the Rebbe, this is also hinted in the Rosh Hashanah of the word Miyad, which of course means immediately. The word Miyad is the Rosh Hashanah of Moshe, Yisrael, that's the Baal Shem Tov, and David Malchus Bo, meaning to say that the Shleimus of the Avodah of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Avodah of the Baal Shem Tov, which includes all of the Rabbeim, all the way to the Sidereinu, who is going to bring it about, who is going to finally make it come down in the most proper and complete way, is going to be through David Malchus Bo, as Moshe Rabbeinu had already requested, Shlachna Bi'atishlach. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yud Gimel, we could say that all of this is also hinted in the Kaviyus, in the special way, the way Yud Shvat is set up this year, that on the year the Rebbe is saying the Sikha was on a Wednesday, on the 4th day in the week, in which, on the one hand, Nitlu Ha'ma'oros, but as well as Nitlu Ha'ma'oros, one with a tes and one with a tof. That means as follows. On the original Wednesday, on the original 4th day of creation, the Eibishter suspended or hung the luminaries, the sun and the moon, in the sky. So that's what Nitlu with a tof means. Nitlu with a tes means the luminaries were taken away. In other words, on the one hand, it was Nitlu Ha'ma'oros, the luminary was taken away. It was the estalkus of Kvoid Kedushas Moed V'cham Yadmur, but not in the way of Nitlu, not in a way of Chas V'Shalom taken away, but rather that itself was immediately transformed with Nitlu with a tof, meaning the two great luminaries are suspended and shining in even a greater way, because as it's known that through the estalkus that causes a greater aliyah and a greater gilui, which is called the Stalek Yikar the Kuchabrichu B'chol Olmen, as it's brought in Mamor Mabasi Lagani, that the Eibishter's light is shining in a stronger way in all the worlds. And the Neshama is then found in all of the worlds even more than during his lifetime. And through his Chasidim and Talmidim that are Makusher to him as Neshamis and Gufim down here in this world. In the 9th generation, and the word Teshi'i, the 9th generation, is a tof. Teshi starts with a tof. Similar to that tof, which we said Nitlu Ha'ma'oros, in comparison to the Nitlu with the test, and instead of the Ma'oros, the luminaries being taken away, the luminaries are being hung up, the luminaries are going to shine. And that brings down over here also in a complete way. The Nitlu Ha'ma'oros, the luminaries shining down, as we said before, is Spiriyuvi, is Galim, and Ekol Noir, that all the Oiros get revealed and uncovered as a Neshama and a Guf down here in this world. Says the Rebbe, from all of this we understand the special Chidush of our generation, the 9th generation, compared to all of the previous generations, even the generation just before this one, the 8th generation. Since in that generation the Geula did not come b'poil, so the boil paroi, this gilui of all these greatest lights, was not betachlis hashlemus, was not in the most perfect way yet, as a neshama in a healthy body, because there was the histalkus of the neshama from the body. And even the neshama, as it was in the body, was in a state that the dibur, the speech, was in Golus. Whereas in our generation, the last generation of Golus, and the first generation of Gula, immediately we have the Nitlu Amoiris, the Moiris, shining. That not only that there's not chas v'shalom anything lacking in the great luminaries of the Gili of Torah, Shemeksav and Torah Sheba'al Peh, but on the contrary, there is added even greater shleimus, not in the way of kvad peh, as we said before by Moshe Rabbeinu, that it was difficult for him to speak in Torah Sheba'al Peh and Torah Shemeksav because he was higher than this, but rather that even as neshama is inside of gufim, we get bepnimius, isperiu, kol noid, and all these greatest lights, which are, so to speak, being hung up and shining right now, through the fact that Mashiach Tzidkenu comes immediately, Shlach Nabiat Tishlach, and will teach Torah to all of the people, and Torah Chadashim Iti Teitze, the new dimensions of Torah, which will be revealed when Mashiach comes. And this will be Poil the Shleimus and the Ali of all the previous generations. Through Akitzu, V'rananu Sheichne, offer that we're going to have Tchias HaMesim and the Baalei Lula, B'roishenu at our head. And the Rebbe explains that the special Kiddush of our generation, compared to the previous generations, we see practically in the avodah of this generation. In this generation, there is added and it's much greater, shaloi be'erich, incomparably greater, in comparison to the previous generation regarding the avodah of spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit and Chassidus to the outside. Both as far as how many Sforim are being printed, the tremendous hashpah of Chassidus, as well as how the world is being transformed. The place that's the most distant place is being transformed to be made into a keli to receive these greatest oiros. And this is both regarding Yidden through the Taryag mitzvahs, as well as regarding the Goyim by spreading Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach in such a way that we're illuminating the whole world with a Neir mitzvah of a Torah. In a way of, as we said, Isperiu kol noir, and all the lights shining, so that every single Yid should be able to receive the oir as a healthy neshama and a healthy body. To the extent that we see practically, as we spoke a number of times recently, that the Goyim in many countries are helping the Yidden in their avodah, similar to, and even more than the way it was by Yetzias Mitzrayim. In fact, even Russia, which was up until recently locked for many, many years, and did not allow Yidden to leave Russia, did not allow them to do Torah and mitzvahs in a proper way. Lately, this all changed from one extreme to the other, and now not only are they enabling Yidden to do whatever they like, allowing them to leave there, but furthermore, they're actually helping the Yidden in all of this. And we see practically today that in addition to the fact that Yidden are standing ready for the Gula, even the Goyim are standing ready that the Yidden should go out of Golus and go to Eretz Yisrael, the Gula mitzvah Shlema, and as Neshama is begufim without any interruption at all. We immediately come to the Shlemus of Boyel Paroi by the Gula mitzvah Shlema, which is the Shlemus HaGilui, the greatest Gilui of his Spiriu Kol No'erin, of all these great lights being revealed. And as the Pasuk says, V'hoye locha avaya, the Eibishter will be for you, L'oir oilam, for an everlasting and eternal oir. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yudalit, from all of this we understand the lesson right now from Boyel Paroi. We discussed a number of times that Kol Lakitzin, that all time limits are up already, and that we completed everything already, and the Gula should have been here quite some time already. And for reasons that are completely not understood, the Gula did not come yet. From all of this we understand that at least right now the Gula definitely has to come. Take it from Yad Mamosh, and to use the expression of the world, that this is the Hechstet Zeit, the highest time for the Gula mitzvah Shlema. And the Rebbe says the words itself, the Hechstet Zeit, that itself hints to the idea of what the Gula is all about. On the one hand, you have time, Zeit is time, so that's all connected to limitations. There's past, present, and future. But at the same time, was saying it's the highest time. In other words, the highest in a way that there's nothing higher than it. In other words, that again, that the limitation itself is going and becoming unlimited. And in a way, as we said before, gvul and bli gvul becoming one, like we discussed before regarding the concept of Esprit Kol Noir. And on the contrary, the main emphasis over here is dafka on the limitation within physical time. Because Beruchnius, all the Inyanim are already b'shleimus, even the shleimus of the Geula Ruchnius, the spiritual eyes of Bnei Yisrael could see already the Geula. Now is the time to open our physical eyes, that they too should see the Geula, as it will be revealed to the eyes of flesh, Bizman Hazeh, this time. And as it's understood simply, the main request and yearning for the Gula is not so much as far as the Ruchnius and the Neshama is concerned, because from the perspective of the Ruchnius, the Kenyanim, the Neshama is perfect already, and all things are perfect already. And even though the Yid is a Neshama beguf in this physical world, but from the perspective of the Neshama of the Ruchnius, it's not felt so much the darkness of the world. Whereas because of the Gashmius of the Guf, that's where the real concealment is felt. And therefore that arouses the yearning for the Gula in even a stronger way. And the Chiddush by the Gula is going to be that the Gilui of Isperiu Kol Noid, and these greatest revelations of light, will be also Begashmius Oilam that can be visible for Einei Basa, for the eyes of flesh, in the physical time and place, that will all become a dinner for the Eibishter B'tachtoinim. And on the contrary, Davka, this expresses the shleimus, the perfection also of the Ruchnius, as we said before, that the Neshama is going to get from the Guf, because the Geula Begashmius is actually going to bring a Geula to all of the worlds and to all the Dargas Lamayla. Says the Rebbe in If Tezvav, the Benegei Lepoil, standing right now the days of preparation for Yud Shvat, the day of the Hilul of the Siddur Reinu, when the Nasi Ador gets an additional Aliyah, Kveit Kedushas Moedi V'chami Admur, and through him all the people in the generation, the women of the generation and the children of the generation. Each and every Yid of our generation, men, women and children, need to accept Achlatas Toivas regarding all of the Inyanim that the Baal HaIlula demanded, starting from their mitzvah of a Torah, that is learning Torah, Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebal Peh, fulfilling mitzvahs behidur, both regarding yourself as well as encouraging others, the avoid of spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit, and spreading Chassidus to the outside, in a way of Boyal Pari. That means to say, to make each and every year a keli for receiving these greatest, most amazing oiros of Shneima Oiros Agdoilim, two great luminaries of Torah Shebeksav, of Torah Shebal Peh, as well as Nigla the Torah and Pnimiyas HaTorah, including, of course, and especially adding and learning the Torah of the Baal HaIlula and fulfilling his oiros. And all of this with the emphasis that each and every person should accept upon himself that his learning of the Torah of the Baal HaIlula should make up and should complete that which was lacking in the spreading of Chassidus, because of the fact, as we said before, that the Baal HaIlula was unable to be able to speak and so on. And how do you do this? Both by privately learning B'dibur, with your speech, actually learning the Torah of the Baal HaIlula, as we just said, as well as spreading Chassidus also to other people. More specifically, says the Rebbe in Sif Tezayin, the Baal HaIlula dedicated himself to every single type of Yidden according to that particular type. As we're able to see the special happy face that the Baal HaIlula was able to show, the smiling and happy face to each and every Yid, men, women, children, men according to their own level, and women in their way, and children in their own way. And that's one of the chidushim of the Nasi of our generation, that in his later years, specifically, he was Moishe Nefesh for spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit, specifically teaching Torah and Chinuch, for the Nesheyu B'nois Yisrael, for the women and girls, as well as children, which is a chidush, a chidush for a Nasi B'Yisrael. Even though we find something like this by other Gedolei Yisrael in previous years, as it's known from their letters, etc., nevertheless, it wasn't accepted by everyone, and even by those that it was with certain limitations. But the Pu'ulos of the Baal HaIlula spread out to many places in the world and continues to spread out. And through this, there's Shaloi Berach, more learning Torah of the women and the children and so on. From all of this, we have Oirah, that the strengthening of Pu'ulos in connection to Yud Shvat has to be with all types of Yidden, men, women, and children, and each type of Yidden according to their own level, and a special emphasis in the Pu'ulos, with Nesheyu B'nois Yisrael, and with children that in addition to their Avodah by themselves, also the Avodah with their whole family, including the men. The special unique idea of children is the fact that we needed to educate them slowly but surely according to their own kalim, according to their own level, in a way that they should be able to receive it. As the Pasuk says by Yosef, and so too the Yosef of our generation, he prepared lechem lefiatav, bread according to the children. In addition to that, we know that children, their nature is that they crumble the food. There's crumbs fall down, But the Rebbe over here looks in a positive way on this idea that what happens with these crumbs can reach other people or to others that on their own cannot get more than little crumbs. So that's the special avodah concerning children. So, regarding the Sheyah B'nai Yisrael, amongst the special mitzvahs of the Sheyah B'nai Yisrael, there's the idea of lighting Shabbos and Yom Tov candles, which this is again a chiddush in our generation, that there's many more women and girls that are lighting Shabbos and Yom Tov candles. And through that, they're illuminating their houses with Ner Mitzvah V'Torah, and in a way of Ispiriyu Kol Lo'od, in revealing and uncovering all the lights. As we could see simply and clearly that when you light a candle, the whole room becomes illuminated with a candle. And since it's a holy candle on which they made a bracha, so the whole room is illuminated with the light of Kedusha, similar to the idea of Ispiriyu Kol Lo'od. Whereas other mitzvahs, it's possible that one mitzvah is different to another, as the Chazal tell us, Malayim mitzvahs karim, and Yidden are filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate. So it's possible that a person could be filled with mitzvahs, but nevertheless, the mitzvahs are separated from each other. It's possibly covered with a klippah, similar to the way the seeds are covered in the rimoin. From this we understand also how, through the lighting Shabbos candles of the women and girls, that actually helps. That should be more of Torah and mitzvahs being done by all of their families, also of their husbands and their children, as it's simply that when the women light the Shabbos candles, that's actually what ushers in Shabbos for the whole family, and only afterwards comes the tefillos of Shabbos and the kiddush of the men. And so too, in a more general way, as the Gemara says, that through the lighting of Shabbos candles, that's where you're zoichet to children, Talmidei Chachamim, as it says, Ki ner mitzvah v'Torah, that through the ner mitzvah of Shabbos comes the light of Torah. Says the Rebbe, we could say that this is also hinted in the gematria of the word neir, which is 250. So the gematria of neir symbolizes the 248 mitzvahs aseh, but how they are permeated through the two ideas of Ava and Yirah. Says the Rebbe in Yud Zayin, generally the lesson over here is that the avodah of every single Yid has to be in a way that he's filled with light, that he's filled with ner mitzvah v'Torah oir, and he's doing his avodah with his neshama, a healthy neshama, in a healthy body, similar to the kohen gadol, as we said before, that needed to be complete. And even if there's chas v'shalom some sort of interruption, and some sort of yerida, some sort of descent, as the pasuk says, "Berega kotten azav dich," that in for a short moment I have left you. Chas v'shalom, a father or a mother, Rachmana litzlan, had passed away because the Gula did not come yet in the meantime. Nevertheless, it's a Yerida Tzorech Aliyah. The descent is only for the purpose of an ascent, only to be able to reach greater levels in the Gili of Boyal Paroi, both as far as the Neshama, and even more so regarding her family, the sons, and mainly the daughters, that they should seek to continue to do the avodah that she did while she was alive, the spirit that she had given into the children through their chinuch. As we know, the concept of Zara B'chayim, Af Hi B'chayim, that by the children being alive, she too is considered alive. And more generally, that this adds even more the Gilia of the Neshama, on the level as the Neshama is called a Shoshana, like a rose, Shoshana in the feminine, receiving from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is called Shoshan in the masculine, and in this way there becomes an absolute unity between Yisrael, V'Kudsha Brichu, Kulachad. Just wanted to clarify regarding this last little piece, where the Rebbe seems to be speaking about a woman, a mother that had passed away, and also suddenly mentioning this word Shoshana, etc. It seems quite obvious that the Rebbe was speaking over here about Rebbetzin Gutnik, Rezel or Shoshana Gutnik, that had passed away one day before this Sikha, Erev Shabbos of that Shabbos Parshas Bo. To continue, and see if Yudches. V'yehi rotzen, that by actually accepting the achlotis regarding Yud Shvat, including that everyone should be mishtatef and all the pu'ulis and minhagim which are connected to Yud Shvat, starting with the fabrengas that are made in every single place for this day, and the week preceding it and following it, that even before all of this should be Akitzu V'Ranu Sheikh Neyofor, Baalai Lula should be leading us, taken from Yad Mamish, with a simple, practical meaning of the word Mamish. As we know that Tzaddikim are going to get up at Tchiyas HaMeisim immediately, and will be able to celebrate together with him the Yom HaElula, and immediately there will be B'Shalach Pariyas Ha'om, Pari sending out the nation, and Yidden walking out with uplifted hands, going out of the Golus, going to our holy land, Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, to Hara Kodesh, to Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, and to Kodesh HaKadoshim, and we'll have Hashem Yimlet, Lo'elam Voed, Hashem ruling forever and ever.